What's up guys, RBG here bringing you more news on Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales, the official standalone spin-off that will essentially serve as an expansion leading up to Marvel Spider-Man 2. This game has undoubtedly carved its own lane in terms of anticipation as we make our leap into next-gen territory. I don't think anyone expected an announcement for a solo Miles Morales video game since we still had our minds dead set on Spider-Man 2. But Sony found a way to put that extra manpower they acquired at Insomniac to good use and doubled their output. They currently have 3 titles in development with Miles Morales releasing first this November, and we have a lot to talk about regarding this game, so stay locked in. Now before we get started on the video, I gotta give a huge shout out to today's sponsor, TubeBuddy. As a successful YouTube user, I often get questions asking what I use to get my videos tons of views, and the answer to that is TubeBuddy. This thing has helped me take my channel to the next level in ways I never imagined. It's a browser extension that helps new and experienced YouTubers grow fast and optimize their channels. I've been using this extension for years and it's constantly getting updated with new features, like the SEO tool that helps me come up with the perfect title, description, and tags to get more people to click on my videos. It even provides you with analytics besides your videos to see how much traffic your video is generating from various social media sites. The extension is absolutely free, but as a special offer, we're giving a 50% discount for channels that have less than 1,000 subscribers that purchase the Pro upgrade. All you have to do is enter in the code RisingStarBuddy. So if you're interested in starting a YouTube channel or taking your content to the next level, download the extension now. You can do so by clicking on this link that'll be provided in the description of this video. But anyways, as I was saying, we got some pretty interesting things to go over today, and it's in regards to how well this game will perform on the PlayStation 5. Firstly, we gotta get this recent update out of the way. Apparently we have 2 Spider-Man games coming to the PS5 this holiday 2020. It was just last month that we received an announcement that Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales will be exclusively releasing for the PS5 in November. Many assumed that the game would serve as the official sequel to the previous installment, but Insomniac quickly clarified that it was simply the next installment in the Marvel Spider-Man universe. Instead of being a full-scale adventure like its predecessor, it'll be similar to that of Uncharted: The Lost Legacy, a game that was smaller in size and scope than a mainline Uncharted title. And some aren't necessarily high on this approach, but I think this is going to be a hefty sample platter while we wait for the official sequel to Marvel Spider-Man. Sony has undoubtedly been utilizing Insomniac to the fullest since their acquisition of the studio, and we already have 3 games coming to the PS5 in the form of Miles Morales, Ratchet & Clank Rift Apart, and Marvel Spider-Man 2 that will more than likely be announced within the next year or so. But as I was saying earlier, it looks like we may be receiving 2 Spider-Man games on the PS5 within this year, one being Miles Morales and the other being a remaster version of Marvel Spider-Man 1. And this alleged rumor comes courtesy of a Reddit user who posted the image from the latest Game Informer magazine. It says, and I quote, "Miles Morales isn't a traditional sequel, since it comes bundled with a remastered version of Insomniac's Spider-Man that takes full advantage of the PS5 hardware." Now I'm not gonna lie to you guys, I would not be surprised if this turns out to be true. Marvel Spider-Man has become one of the PlayStation 4's best-selling games, and Sony has undoubtedly taken notice to the ginormous reception it's gotten and gone full speed ahead with future plans for the web-slinger. The game serves as an example of what happens when prestigious developers put their all into creating a AAA title with a superhero. And just last year, Sony used it as an example to showcase how fast the PlayStation 5's load times can be. During a demonstration, footage was presented by Sony comparing Marvel Spider-Man running on both the current gen system and the PS5. And on the PS4 Pro, Sony revealed the Spider-Man PS4 takes 8.10 seconds to load up, whereas on the PS5 it only takes 0.8 seconds to load up. That's a pretty drastic reduction in load times if you ask me, and if this rumor is true that the Marvel Spider-Man game is coming to the PlayStation 5, then I think it's safe to assume that this supposed remaster will come with a few visual improvements to accompany its fast load times. Now, as good as this sounds, we should take it with a small pinch of salt. I gotta point out that print magazines like Game Informer have a long lead time, so they could be working off information that's a little bit behind the times. But I'd like to believe that Sony wants to bundle this game up with the latest installment to encourage more fans to go out and buy Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales. Like, I don't know about you guys, but I'm really looking forward to spending $70 for a beefy expansion that'll be 8 to 10 hours of gameplay. I'm gonna need something to go along with that to make it worth the price of admission. Like, I've already been seeing comments saying that they're gonna wait for the price to drop for Miles Morales and that they're gonna buy it when Marvel Spider-Man 2 comes out. So I think Sony should really take this business tactic into consideration. There are still those who haven't even played the first Spider-Man game, and if they hear that the PS5 will have a superior version of the game that features some improvements, then they'll want to buy that version on the PS5. This generation of gaming has already been dubbed the remaster era, especially for the PS4. We've seen games like The Last of Us get remastered for the PS4, so I don't think it's that far of a stretch to assume that Sony will remaster one of their best-selling PlayStation 4 games for the upcoming PS5. But moving on, I wanted to briefly discuss the announcement we got a few weeks ago regarding the actual performance for Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales. When the game was first announced, it was confirmed that it would take advantage of things like the PlayStation 5's DualSense controller and the Tempest engine and dedicated ray tracing and other stuff that I can hardly pronounce, such as a 3D spatial audio and real-time ray tracing effects. With the increased processing power and inclusion of a custom solid-state drive storage, the game will feature near instantaneous load times and a wide variety of enemies and visual effects and objects within the gameplay scenes. And if I'm not mistaken, and don't quote me on this, but I think it'll be able to run at a native 8K resolution. So those are some pretty impressive feats for the upcoming Miles Morales game. Something else that's going to be impressive is the fact that it'll be able to run at a native 4K 60 frames per second. Having the option of running at a high resolution with buttery smooth frames has been a rare oddity in this console generation, especially for Sony. Like ever since we got the PS4 Pro, we can only get games in a fake checkerboard 4K resolution capped at 30 FPS. And if by any chance you want your game to run at 60 FPS, you'll have to compromise that 4K resolution with 1080p in performance mode. And I usually just go with the latter because I could care less about having realistic rocks if the frame rate is lagging behind. Like, I'm not trying to come off as a PC elitist because I appreciate each platform for what they have to offer, but I gotta be real with y'all. The consoles are always behind when it comes to game performance. Anytime Sony and Microsoft announce these new performance benchmarks their new consoles are gonna hit, they're already late to the party. Not to mention that there's always a catch. You always have to compromise something to attain something else. And I say that to say this. If Insomniac is touting that Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales will feature a quote-unquote performance mode that'll allow me to run the game at 4K 60 frames per second, then what would be compromised while I'm running the game at 8K? If Sony has invested more in graphical resolutions than frame performance with the PS4 Pro, then I can only imagine what they're going to invest with the PS5. The company already seems to be more interested in taking advantage of features like ray tracing rather than drastically increasing the frame rate. And anytime they mention the 8K resolutions, they never really clarified the games will run at 60 FPS or higher while in that resolution. So this leads many, including myself, to believe that the games will merely run at 8K 30 FPS. And I already know that the casual gamers aren't going to think much of this since they've never really played games at their max, but this is a big concern for those who've been wanting Sony to get with the times. I also got to bring up the fact that the performance mode frame rate for PS5 so far seems to be dragging behind the Xbox Series X, because unlike Sony, who's offering games at 4K 60 frames per second, Microsoft is offering games that run at 4K 120 frames per second, and Sony hasn't necessarily disclosed that the PS5 will be able to hit that particular benchmark when it comes to frames. And it's going to be a bit disappointing if we don't get this for future games somewhere down the line. Like, it's good that Sony's finally getting with the times in terms of frame performance, but if your competitor is offering something more with their performance mode, then you gotta step it up. Having a console game run on par with a high-end PC game would be like a godsend. Like, I don't think you guys understand where I'm coming from, but when you play games on the PC, your whole perspective completely changes, man. And it seems like Microsoft gets that because they've gone on record how diversity of hardware choice in PC has not held back the highest fidelity of PC games on the market, which essentially means that just because not everyone has a high-end PC doesn't mean the developers need to aim for a high-end graphics. They can still work on stuff like the frame rate. If you ask me, it's a lot cheaper because these people spend a lot of money to work on these graphic engines. But anyways, guys, I didn't mean to go off on a tangent. I just want these games to take full advantage of everything the PS5 hardware has to offer. Don't get me wrong, I'm happy that Spider-Man Miles Morales will be running at a native 4K 60 frames per second on performance mode, but I was expecting to have a little more on the max setting side of things. Anyways, let me know what you think about all this news. Do you like that Marvel Spider-Man could potentially be getting a remastered and rebundled with Miles Morales' game? And how do you feel about Marvel Spider-Man Miles Morales possibly running at a mere 30 frames per second while in 8K? Let me know in the comments below. As always, I ask you like or dislike the video. It doesn't have to be a thumbs up, it can be a thumbs down. Any feedback is good feedback and will only help me improve on future videos. But if you really enjoyed the video, it would help me out tremendously if you shared it with all your friends and followers on social media. Sharing really makes a difference. But once again, this is your boy RBG signing out on another video. I'll catch you guys later. Peace out.